What's going on, guys? It's Fantasy Stock Exchange here, and today we're bringing you another installment of our Dynasty Decision Series we do over here at the Fantasy Stock Exchange YouTube channel. And today we got a little twist on these series. We're going to be talking strictly trades that our Discord has done. So if you guys aren't already in the Discord, make sure you get in there because, again, that's where we're getting the content for these videos. With that being said, Discord setting us trades, basically talking about them, kind of giving a broad perspective, general perspective, whether it's super flex, tight end premium, one quarterback, and just kind of giving you our thoughts on them in every single format. So with that being said, Corey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I was on hiatus for a couple days. It's a long weekend here in Canada. I'm not sure if it's a long weekend in the US, but we had Victoria Day weekend here, so I was away for like 3 or 4 days. Our website should be, by the time you guys are seeing this, back up and running. So I know you guys had some concerns about that. If you did have concerns, it should be up and running again. So we should be good there. I'm excited to get into this. We have a couple of our own trades that we're going to talk about at the end, but you guys made some good trades. Some of you guys made some not so good trades. We're here to be the judge of that and go through and, grade your trade, so to speak.
For sure. So with that being said, before we hit into the first one, going to hit the intro now. Okay, so let's start off with the first trade. So on the screen right now, you should see DylPickle's trade. And this is a very interesting trade, especially because we've talked about the rookie fever. We've talked about overall everybody having their rookie drafts right now, what kind of value you can get for some of these guys. And DylPickle absolutely smashed this one. I love Ja'Marr Chase. He is my wide receiver one in this class. Absolutely worth that 105, 106 consideration in Superflex leagues, that 102 consideration in one quarterback leagues. But if you can tell me right now, I can get 3 future first-round picks for Ja'Marr Chase, I am taking that and running with it and not even thinking twice.
Right. I totally agree. And I know, like, maybe if you guys play Devy, you know that the 2022 class isn't expected to be that good. But if you're getting 2 first-round picks in the 2022 class and a first-rounder in the 2023 class, at bare minimum, we always talk about appreciating assets. Those picks are going to be worth more this time next year than they are right now. So if you don't want to select those players, for example, like maybe you don't, by the time the draft comes along, the general consensus is that the class isn't that good. There's always going to be players in every class that everybody likes, and rookie fever will hit no matter how bad a class is. Rookie fever probably hit the year that, N'Keal Harry was the 101, and that class wasn't very good at all, even though they had AJ Brown and DK Metcalf in it. So if the 2022 class produces some pretty good players, you'll be able to sell those first round picks for probably a lot more value than you even got Ja'Marr Chase for. And you might even be able to sell him back for Ja'Marr Chase if he has a down rookie season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could see a scenario where if Ja'Marr Chase maybe doesn't have that 1,000-yard, 7-8 touchdown rookie season like we kind of expect, and people are not lower on him, but say that those 22 first end up being like the 107, the 110. If you ended up packing those further for next year for Chase, I could very well see a scenario where the owner just kind of says, well, you know what, like at least I could still repeat more value. But anyways, that being said, absolutely love the deal for this year, for the future. You got those appreciating assets, and there's just really no downside to making this type of moves because there's no way those picks can go down in value from where you currently got.
Right, so, and again, Chase could there is a world where Ja'Marr Chase is a top 5 dynasty receiver this time next year, but if you got this, if this was Justin Jefferson and not Ja'Marr Chase, I would probably still do this trade.
I would,
to be honest, because those 3 first-round picks for any dynasty asset, let alone a wide receiver who's generally not as valuable as a position as like a superstar running back or a superstar quarterback in a super flex would be, that alone is worth those 3 first-round picks. So yeah, all that being said, like Danny said, these picks are going up in value no matter what, especially that 2023 first with as much hype as that class is getting, that you're going to be able to sell that next year in your rookie draft or in a trade, and you could probably get some established veterans for some of these pieces. So DylPickle also had another question or another scenario of trades. So I'm going to go through this really quick just because he did a bunch of trades at once here. But he's in a 20-man league. I'm not going to go over the roster. You can see it on the screen right now, but it's a bad roster. He's got Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon and DK Metcalf. But outside of that, not a lot of great cornerstone pieces for a dynasty roster. He realized that he had to rebuild pretty quickly. And he made 3 trades. The first 2 trades, I would say, were probably not the greatest trades in the world, but he kind of made up for it with the third one. So the first trade, as you'll see on the screen right now, he traded away Joe Mixon for AJ Dillon, the 117 and the 209. And the 117, the reason it's the 117 is because this is a 20-man league. There's 20 people in this league. So a first round pick being the 117 is virtually the 20, the 205 in a standard 12 team league. So for the 117, you're looking at a guy like potentially Elijah Moore, maybe a Kadarius Toney, maybe a Rondell Moore or a Terrace Marshall. And then the 209, you're talking about basically a mid third round pick. So you're probably talking about like a Dwayne Eskridge or something like that. So AJ Dillon, let's say Elijah Moore and Dwayne Eskridge for Joe Mixon. To me, that's not enough value for a guy like Joe Mixon. As much as we don't really believe in Joe Mixon that much, he's still a borderline top 15 dynasty running back, given his carry volume that he's going to receive.
Yeah.
And the fact that, one, he has a huge name cachet that is always going to be more expensive than we're giving him credit for. And he's also going to be tied to Joe Burrow for the next couple of years. They just added Jamar Chase. The offense looks like it's going to be taking a step forward. So at the very least, Joe Mixon should go up in value in the next year or two.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. And in general, if you're actually looking at the deal itself, I don't think it's like an awful trade, but I do think you could have gotten more value here because, again, Joe Mixon on the volume alone is going to produce more than Dillon, Elijah Moore, and Dwayne Eskridge, as we mentioned. So I think you could have probably gotten something close to the 112. If that was the case, I probably would have considered that. But 117 is just a little too low for my liking. Anyways, with that being said, let's get into the next deal. And he talks about trading Myles Gaskin for Traquan in a 2023 third. And that one's rough for me. That one's rough.
Yeah, you really have to believe in Traquan Smith for that trade to even make a lot of sense. Because, again, this is a 20-man league. And a 2023 third, not only is it 2 years from now, but a third-round pick in general is, you're talking, in a 20-man league, you're talking about like the 50th best player in a draft class. So who's the 50th best player in this draft class? I don't know. Probably
someone that made my deep sleepers video, like a Simi Fehoko or Chris Evans.
Yeah, to me, that's not nearly enough value for a guy like Myles Gaskin, who, probably won't be a workhorse running back for the next 5 years, but at the very minimum, he should be a feature back this season, and we'll see what happens going forward. And I think that alone should be worth, if you're going to get a 2023 something, you should have gotten a 2023 first for him in a 20-man league.
In worst case scenario, 2023 first, or even if it was like 2 or 3 seconds in a 20-man league, I think I would consider that, but I just don't think the value there that you currently have was enough. But I will say the third deal actually does make up for it because I do think you did very well in this one. Yes, you traded DK Metcalf, as you guys can see on the screen, but the whole deal isn't too bad. DK Metcalf, Tevin Coleman in the 117 for Kenyon Drake, Chris Godwin, 2022 second and 2023 first. So if you're actually looking at this from a package standpoint, we can say Chris Godwin in the second for DK Metcalf, probably around appropriate value. And then you can look at the fact that it's Coleman and a 117 for Drake in a 2023 first. On the sheer upside alone that 2023 first is not bottom end, I would do that deal because the 117 is basically the 205. If you get any type of 2023 first in the top 12, you're already profiting on that. So overall, I do like this deal, but what are your thoughts?
I really like the deal because I think what you did in this deal, because you realize you had to rebuild, right? You only have like 3 cornerstone pieces on your roster. Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, and DK Metcalf are really your only cornerstone pieces. So yes, DK Metcalf is young and talented, and he'll probably still be very valuable like 2 years from now when you're ready to compete. But he's at borderline peak value right now because he's like the wide receiver 4, 5, 6, maybe even higher in some people's minds. So at that point, you're getting a guy in Chris Godwin who this time last year was where DK Metcalf is now and is still really the same age as DK Metcalf. He's only like probably a year or two older than him. And he's going to be, in his prime by the time you're ready to compete in 2023. And the best part about this deal to me is that you got a 2023 first out of this, because that's probably your winning window. And at the very least, you can flip that 2023 first for a more win now piece if you're ready to compete at that point. But I think what I would have targeted was that 2023 draft with all of these trades. Like if you could have stacked picks in that draft, because that's probably when you're ready to compete, right? If you could have gotten AJ Dillon in a 2023 first for Joe Mixon, still probably not like the best deal in the world, but at least you're getting future first round picks in the draft that you're probably going to compete with. And then same with Myles Gaskin. If you were able to finagle like 2 2023 seconds out of somebody for that, then you could have really stacked that draft class and at the very least moved a lot of those picks for future players at some point when you're ready to compete.
Well, yeah, if you take in even that AJ Dillon deal, If you could have convinced the guy to throw in a 2023 first rather than the 209 specifically, maybe he thinks, oh yeah, you know what? I don't want to wait for 2 years. So he might be able to do that deal. And if that's the case, he would have absolutely won
I
that
would
deal.
do that if I was a contender.
Yeah.
If I wanted Joe Mixon on my team as like my RB2 or my RB3 on a contending team, I would
Especially
trade a late first round pick. And this guy clearly was a contender because he has the 117, which means he was the consolation champion or whatever this past year. So if it were me and you said the price for Joe Mixon or maybe a running back of similar value, if you don't believe in Joe Mixon as much, is AJ Dillon a late first rounder in a 20-man league and a 2023 first at a point where we're probably going to be late as well? I would gladly do a deal like that for a proven asset like Joe Mixon or, Clyde Edwards-Helaire or something of that realm of value. So I think you probably could have, for Mixon especially, I think you could have gotten a lot more value just because he has more security than a guy like Myles Gaskin, and people would be probably willing to overpay for him more.
Yeah, fully agree with that. So overall, I mean, you did moves to really move for the future, rebuild that team because even a 20 team, you recognize right away you needed some rebuilding to be done. And I just like the fact that you're able to diagnose where you're at, where you want to be, and you made moves proactively to try to accomplish that. So overall, good job. That being said, we can hop on to JacksonH's team. So he actually shows both his team and the trade. I'm just going to show the trade on the screen for easy to follow in the YouTube video. But that being said, he traded the 101. Interesting. He traded the 101 and in return ended up getting the 108, a 2021 second round pick, which is the 204, and a 2023 first round pick. So we can look at this trade in both a super flex and a one quarterback mindset. For one quarterback, this would basically be like a Najee Harris for, we'll say, Rashad Bateman, the 204, which would probably be like
Kadarius Toney, something like that.
St. Brown, something like that, and a 2023 first. So overall, you're looking at it, Bateman, St. Brown, and a first for Najee. I think that's a pretty fair overall deal. If you're looking to really acquire that depth, I still think Bateman's going to be a solid wide receiver 2 in fantasy for the foreseeable future. You get Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's got upside in terms of that Detroit offense to really be that number 1, maybe number 2 target behind TJ Hawkinson. And then that 2023 first we've been mentioning has an absolutely loaded class. So I really like this deal for both ways, but if you need depth particularly, I don't mind flipping Najee for that type of price.
Right. And this is a one quarterback league, if I'm not mistaken, because in the picture he sent of his roster, it looks like he only has one starting quarterback slot. So, but even though he does have Deshaun Watson and Tua both on his team. So yeah. I think in a one quarterback league, I like this deal a little bit less just because the difference between the 108 and a one quarterback league and in a super flex league is probably a bigger difference because at 108, I mean, you might be able to see a guy like ETN fall there, a guy like Kyle Pitts fall there, even Jamar Chase in some cases. So that 108 is probably worth more in a super flex league. In a super flex league also too, the 101, you're presumably selling Trevor Lawrence. And you guys both know our thoughts on Trevor Lawrence, and selling high on him is something I would absolutely do if somebody is willing to overpay for a guy like Trevor Lawrence. But this is most likely a one quarterback league. So if you were able to, get out like a bandit and get a little bit better of a player than that 108, like let's say Devontae Smith or Javonte Williams were to fall there, then I really like this deal for you. But you have a pretty good team, man. You got Watson, Edwards-Helaire, Eckler, Ayuk, Justin Jefferson. I probably would have and you have Dobbins in your flex. I probably would have just stuck to your team and picked Najee Harris if I were you, just because your team is already really good, ready to compete. And in that situation, you probably should just take the best piece in the deal. And that to me is clearly Najee Harris.
Yeah, it's definitely fair. Again, fair both sides. But I do agree to the preface that with the team, maybe you want to keep Harris, but I'm fine. Even if you wanted to move Harris, you got a really good package to be able to do so. Now let's talk about it in the super flex train of thought, because there's obviously viewers in here kind of trying to appropriate that 101 value in a super flex. And as Corey mentioned, because Corey alluded to, I would absolutely take this bundle for that super flex 101. Look, I love Trevor Lawrence, but if you're telling me right now, I currently have Travis Etienne as my 8th ranked rookie. If you're telling me right now I can get Travis Etienne, 204, which is probably like a Trey Sermon or a Terrace Marshall, and a 2023 first for him, I would absolutely take that deal and run with it.
Right. And in both situations, at the 108, you could have a guy fall to you that you're not expecting, like a Kyle Pitts, like a Jamar Chase. At the 204, you could have, Rashad Bateman like fall to you. And in that situation, you're also making out like a bandit. So at that point, you got a lot of value swing in your favor for a guy that we both, have kind of talked about our concerns with, and the fact that he plays for the Jaguars. So we can move on to the next team. Lightning Panda sends, I believe it's 2 trades. You can go ahead and read those off.
Yeah, for sure. So the first one he mentioned Terrace Marshall, a 2022 first and a 2023 first for Terry McLaurin, and it's a single quarterback league. He's rebuilding, and he's the other guys are contending. And look, I love Terry McLaurin, but I'm smashing this deal and not even thinking twice about it. I love Terrace Marshall's prospects as it is. He's a mid-second rounder in a super flex, end of the first round type talent in a one quarterback league rookie draft. Then on top of that, you're getting a 2022 first and a 2023 first. Even if it was Marshall in a 2022 first, I think that would probably be around appropriate value. The fact that you're getting a 2023 first on top of that, I love that move for you.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I think Terry McLaurin is probably, on his way to being a top 12 receiver, both in redraft and dynasty formats. But Terrace Marshall, I think, has a tremendous ceiling. I think he could be, a guy like T. Higgins. The way that we're looking at T. Higgins this time next year, I think Terrace Marshall could legitimately do that in his rookie season. And like you said, 2022 first, 2023 first on top of that. Like we always say, picks are always going to appreciate in value too. If Terrace Marshall turns into borderline what Terry McLaurin is in his first year in terms of a dynasty asset, and then you just sell that 2022 first, 2023 first, and go out and get like a star running back or something like that, then you just fleece this guy for Terry McLaurin. As much as I love Terry McLaurin, I don't think he's worth that much. So yeah, I would take the Marshall side without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure. So that's the one quarterback. Obviously, in a super flex, the pick values get even better. So regardless, I love this deal from both aspects. If you're talking about the second deal here, it currently has Jameis Winston and DJ Chark in exchange for Devonta Smith, Elijah Moore, and a 2022 third. Winston's his fourth quarterback, so he's somewhat expendable. I love this deal. Get yourself Devonta Smith and Elijah Moore here. The way I kind of look at it is Chark and Elijah Moore and the third is probably around equatable value. And I would much prefer Devonta Smith to Jameis Winston at face value. And obviously, again, if we're assuming this from a super flex train of thought and a one quarterback, it's even more lopsided because Winston has even less value. So overall, regardless, super flex, one quarterback, smash this deal. I love the Devonta Smith, Elijah Moore, and the third here.
Right. And I think to me, for both of us, we both love Devonta Smith. If you don't like Devonta Smith, I don't really know what to tell you, but Devonta Smith to me is clearly the best asset in this deal. And
yes,
DJ Chark has produced, but he doesn't have that high of a ceiling, in my opinion, not close to what Devonta Smith has. And like you said, I think Elijah Moore in a 2022 third is about equivalent value to DJ Chark. And then when you're talking about Devonta Smith versus Jameis Winston, even if he is the Saints starting quarterback going forward, this is going to be a year-over-year thing. Let's not pretend that if he has a good year this year, he's going to sign a 7-year extension and be their quarterback for that long. If he plays good this year, they're probably going to franchise tag him. So he's probably not going to be in a long-term situation unless he just wins MVP or something. There's no way that's going to happen. So I think Devonta Smith, Elijah Moore, and the 2022 third side is pretty convincingly the side I would pick.
Yep, I fully agree with that. So with that being said, we could head on to the next team, and that's Big Al. He's basically talking about sorry, a little voice crack. He's basically talking about a potential deal for the 101, and he mentions here, this is a very spicy one because this is kind of balancing that win now versus appreciating asset approach. On the one side, he's giving up Aaron Rodgers and Keenan Allen, and on the other side, he would be getting the 101. So the way I look at this, as much as I love Rodgers, as much as I love Allen, they're depreciating assets. The 101 is going to be worth more than those two this year, next year, the year after. So although right now, if you're winning now, it might seem like a big price to pay because if Rodgers on the field, he's going to be a top 5 to 8 quarterback. If Keenan Allen's on the field, he's going to be a top 8 to 10 receiver minimum. I'm taking the 101 here, and I'm not really thinking twice.
Yeah, see, this is a hard deal to wrap your mind around because, like you said, this is a win now deal versus a rebuilding type of deal. And Rodgers and Keenan Allen, if you have a team that's ready to compete, could absolutely help you win a championship because Rodgers is probably a locked and loaded top 5 quarterback if he's on the field, like you said. And then Keenan Allen, I think he has legitimate wide receiver 1 upside this year, the wide receiver 1 upside. And Keenan Allen, while I think he might not be as depreciating of an asset as you do, I would say, I think he's going to have 2 to 3 more years of very, very good production. He definitely still is up there in age. And the 101, if nothing else, could appreciate just by the fact that, Najee Harris has a great rookie season or something like that. If that's the direction you go with the 101, and you're looking at a situation where Najee Harris is a top, 7 pick overall startup pick, you just gain so much value in that situation. If you look at all these players from a startup draft perspective, let's say Najee Harris is the guy that you're going to pick 101. Where does Najee Harris go in a startup? Second round? Third round?
Second, third round, yeah.
Where's Keenan Allen going to go? Fourth, fifth round, probably?
Probably fifth.
And then with Aaron Rodgers' murky situation too, because we can't discount the fact that that's a real thing. He's probably going to go in the 5th, 6th round as a result, because he probably would be a 3rd or 4th round pick if that wasn't the case. But because of that murky situation, you're looking at a situation where you're getting like a 2nd or 3rd round startup pick for 2, 4th, 5th, or 6th rounders. And I would probably take the higher end asset in that situation.
Yeah, for sure. So looking at it in the 1 quarterback league, you mentioned Harris. Obviously, again, if it's a 1 quarterback league, I'm taking the 101 because Rodgers loses value there. And if it's a super flex league, you're looking at it as Rodgers and Allen. For us, it would be Trey Lance. For the general consensus, it'd be Trevor Lawrence. And yes, I would still lean the young quarterbacks in each of those scenarios. So overall, I really like that type of value. And if you can get the 101 there, I would absolutely smash that for your situation.
Yep.
So anyways, with that being said, we can head on to the next trades. And this is actually from Wolverine in the Discord. So he mentions that he just made 2 deals in Superflex, and he still has the 106, 205, 206, 209, 306, and 406. And he talks about the deals here. So basically he traded here. So he got, Christian McCaffrey and the 209, and he traded away CEH Montgomery in the 203. So if we're just looking at this from a strict value standpoint, I would still prefer McCaffrey to CEH Montgomery in the 203. You have the 209 on top of it. That basically sums up my idea on the trade.
Right. And see, the thing that I have a little bit of pause about is the scarcity of the running back position, right? Because you gave up 2 top 20 dynasty running backs, right? I would say at minimum, they're both top 20 dynasty running backs. You can even make the case that they're both top 15 dynasty running backs with CEH and David Montgomery. So if you have adequate running back depth, and I would assume if you're making this deal, you probably do have adequate running back depth. CMC is the RB1 for us in Dynasty. He's still my RB1. He's still the guy I would pick 2nd overall behind Patrick Mahomes in a super flex startup. So CMC to me is worth that value because, again, if you look at it at a Dynasty startup, trying to get up to the 102 to pick Christian McCaffrey with CEH, who's probably a 3rd round pick. David Montgomery is probably might even be a 4th or 5th round pick. You're probably not going to be able to get up that high for Christian McCaffrey. And the 2nd rounders, they're not, I mean, the 203 versus the 209 is not that big of a value discrepancy to the point where I'm, even really considering them a part of the trade, to be honest. So I would lean the CMC side, but only if you can afford to give up those 2, good, solid running back options.
Yeah, like comparing, for example, in a super flex in this scenario, we're comparing the 203 to the 209 to like Terrace Marshall and Amon St. Brown. We're looking at it from a Warden quarterback perspective. We're looking at, let's just say, Rondale Moore versus, Pat Freiermuth. So overall, I still really like the deal for you. And to be honest, I would view this as more fair if it was straight up CEH Montgomery in a first for CMC. So the fact that you're able to not only knock it from a 1st to a 203, but also get a 209 there, I like the deal for you. Both perspectives, 1 quarterback versus Superflex. So with that being said, we can head into the second deal where you got 2 top 3 running backs in these 2 deals, because that is just phenomenal what you're able to do there. But he got Saquon Barkley, Keyshawn Vaughn, the 203 and the 205 for Dobbins and Ayuk. And guys, listen, we love those 2 sophomore players. Dobbins, Ayuk, they are fantastic. They're not worth Saquon Barkley together. Never mind getting also the 203, the 205, and Vaughn.
Yeah, I totally agree. Saquon Barkley, again, if you look at it from a startup perspective, Saquon Barkley is a top 5 startup pick for me. J.K. Dobbins is more of a mid-second rounder, and then Ayuk is probably about a 4th, 5th, 6th rounder. So again, you're probably not getting Saquon with those 2 startup picks, let alone the fact that you're probably also going to get, an Elijah Moore, De'Ami Brown in the 2nd round with the 203 and the 205, and then Keyshawn Vaughn, I guess, is a decent throw-in as a young running back with some upside. So yeah, I totally agree. Saquon is easily the best asset in this deal. I would take that 10 out of 10 times if I was on the Barkley side.
Yep, I fully agree. So with that being said, we can head on to the next deal, and that's going to be from Lamar Gaming. So the side A gets Tom Brady, Stephon Diggs in a 2022 3rd. The side B gets Chris Godwin, a 2022 1st and 2nd. I'm assuming it's a super flex, but again, we're going to talk about it from both ways. So overall, in a super flex league, the way I kind of look at this is Chris Godwin in a 2nd is probably around what Stephon Diggs is worth. And then you basically got Tom Brady in a 2022 3rd for a 2022 1st. And I would still slightly lean the 1st there. So overall, I do slightly prefer side B. But if you're a contender and you're going after Brady, Diggs in the 3rd, I don't absolutely hate it for you. But overall strict value wise in a super flex, I do prefer side B.
Yeah, I think this is totally like a win-win type of decision for a team, because I think, again, like I talked about with Chris Godwin is at a point where he is at, in my opinion, his lowest point of value that he's going to be at. And if he appreciates into something close to what Stephon Diggs is, and I think by this time next year, if Diggs has a little bit, not as elite of a season as he had this past year, and Chris Godwin gets back to his old self, doesn't deal with so many injuries, we could be looking at a situation where these guys are within the same tier of dynasty receiver, right? And at that point, you're talking about all like the pick value that you're getting on the Godwin side versus Tom Brady, who's probably going to play another 2 years, but he's 45 years old. He'll be 45 years old when the time the season starts. And how much can you really count on that long term? Again, like you said, if it's a contending team, Tom Brady's going to help you win as your quarterback 2 or whatever in a super flex league for the next 2 years. But after that, he's going to be a worthless dynasty asset. And that 2022 first might be, even if it's only a mid-round pick, could be a very valuable asset for you to sell later in your thing. Like, you might be able to sell that 2022 first this time next year for maybe one of these sophomore quarterback or these rookie quarterbacks this year heading into their sophomore year. If you could sell, that 2022 first for Zach Wilson or for Trey Lance or for Justin Fields heading into their sophomore year, if they have a bit of an up and down rookie season, then you basically got a rookie, like a very young quarterback for Tom Brady.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with that. So overall, again, this makes sense both ways, but from a strict value standpoint, in a super flex and a 1 quarterback league, either or, I do prefer side B. And as you mentioned, you agree with that. So,
yep.
And we actually, do you remember whose team this was that you sent in, by the way?
I do not.
Regardless, if they're watching the video, they're going to see their trade here. But it's Ronald Jones that they would be sending. And in return, they'd be getting Will Disley, Eno Benjamin, and a 2023 second-round pick. So I'll let you take it away to start this one off because he is your guy. What are your thoughts on this deal?
Yeah, so to me, this comes down to, I'm sure everybody's received a trade like this, a trade offer like this, where you have, and it's not like Ronald Jones is like an elite option or anything like that, but you get one proven guy that can contribute to your fantasy roster for a bunch of throw-in pieces and, a late round pick. I've received a million offers like that before, and I will always choose the proven asset in that situation. And whether you like it or not, Ronald Jones is probably going to be an RB2 this year, at RB3 at minimum, flex play at minimum. And this guy is legitimately 22, 23 years old. He was so young coming out of school. He's going to be, 24 by the time he signs his second contract. Maybe it's with Tampa. Maybe he goes somewhere else. Maybe we see a situation, where he gets a 2-year, $15 million deal similar to what Melvin Gordon got in Denver or something like that. And he's a guy that's a borderline, RB2 for the next 2 to 3 years. And in that case, I will take that every day over Eno Benjamin, who I'm not even convinced is going to make the Cardinals roster. Will Disley, who has had, I believe, a patella tear and an ACL tear and Achilles or something like that. So This guy has just been super, super injured. And then a 2023 second. I mean, that's 2 years from now, and it's a second round pick. So I would take the Ronald Jones side, and I probably wouldn't even think twice about that.
Yep, no, I fully agree. I would also take the Ronald Jones side here. So with that being said, we can get on to the end of the video now, and that's going to be talking about and recapping our own deals in our own league. So giving us maybe a little bit of a biased perspective, but we'll each kind of be countering each other's points, so it'll be fine regardless. But we'll start off with the 2 trades I made. So the first one I made in a Mega Flex league. So if you guys aren't familiar with a Mega Flex, you can start up to 3 quarterbacks on any given week, and it's a super deep roster starting lineup. I believe there's 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 2 tight ends, and like 5 flexes. So it's pretty insane. So it's a Mega Flex league. 2 tight ends start with a 1.5 tight end premium. So you guys can see on the screen, I gave up Patrick Mahomes and a 2023 first round pick. And in return for a super contending team coming off a championship win, received Travis Kelce, Christian McCaffrey, and Melvin Gordon. So I'll let you take it off with your thoughts here because, again, I'm a little bit biased. But what are your thoughts on this deal on face value?
Right. So you mentioned this is a tight end premium, which means Travis Kelce's a first-round pick. Locked and loaded first-round pick. Yeah, he's 31 years old, but in a tight end premium, he is probably like wide receiver 1 value in terms of what kind of output he's going to put up. We've already talked about Christian McCaffrey. He, to me, is the 102. So him and Mahomes pretty much have similar value to me. And then Melvin Gordon's like a decent throw-in, I guess. I would probably take your side, but I do understand if you're a rebuilding team, which I'm assuming this guy is, why you would acquire, a 25-year-old quarterback who's going to be on the Chiefs for the next 9 years and a 2023 first to help yourself rebuild. So I like it for both sides, but for you definitely got two absolutely superstar options for your roster and then another decent one.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm just going to talk about it a little bit myself because, again, I am biased, but I'm stoked because, again, in a 2 tight end start tight end premium league, I got Travis Kelce now to pair with Darren Waller at my 2 tight end spots. So pretty happy with that. But overall, yeah, again, coming off that championship, Scott just made some moves in the draft that was absolutely phenomenal. So I had to take that little step. So yeah, overall, that's the deal. You guys can comment down below your thoughts on it as well. So I'll quickly go into actually yours. You can kind of step in here, so I'm not just talking about myself.
Right. So in our listener league, and we just wrapped up our draft a couple days ago or a couple weeks ago, and I noticed my team was very capable of winning. Right. I looked around the league, and I would encourage you guys to do this too. If you're in a startup, look around the league, see what's kind of good, and if you're looking to acquire future picks, if you're looking to see if you can contend, that's information you need to know, right? Because if you look and you kind of rate the teams, and you're like me, I have like the second or third best team in the league, I would consider myself as. So I can contend, right? It's fantasy football. I would say if you have a top 5 team in your league, you can contend because, injuries are going to happen and fantasy football is unpredictable as shit. So just because you're not the best team in your league doesn't mean you can't contend. If you're a top 5 team, you can contend. And in our listener league, I noticed that my team is very capable of doing that. So I made an aggressive win now type of trade where I would bolster my flex position because that was kind of a weak spot on my roster was my second flex position. So what I did was I traded a second round pick next year and a third round pick. So a 2022 second, 2022 third and JaMychal Hasty and Jalen Guyton, which are both kind of, fringe roster guys. They're not really all that valuable. They might even be on your waiver wire in some dynasty leagues. So I don't even really consider those guys part of the trade, to be honest. And I got Julio Jones in return. And if nothing else, we know all the rumors swirling about Julio Jones right now. He's on freaking Skip and Shannon or whatever, talking about how he doesn't want to play for the Cowboys and he wants out of Atlanta or whatever. At the very least, in my opinion, Julio Jones is probably going to go up in value from where he's at now, because if he gets traded to Green Bay or to Tennessee or something like that, then this guy's value is probably going to skyrocket. And I could trade him at that point. But if nothing else, he should be at least a wide receiver 2 for me for the next 2 seasons. And in that winning window that I have AJ Brown and Devontae Adams and Saquon Barkley and J.K. Dobbins and a bunch of other guys that are going to help me. Tannehill and Noah Fant. I have a good roster, a good starting roster, and a lot of depth. So I think I'm going to be able to contend this year, and Julio Jones only adds to that.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I think for both sides, it does make sense here. For Jared's side, he's getting his second round pick back, which should probably figure in that early to mid range, given the fact that he wants to kind of take a step back this year. Getting that third round pick and a couple young options, I don't mind that type of price for Julio. And then for your position, you're expecting to contend. You want to win that championship. Julio Jones is going to give you top 15 type numbers minimum if he's on the field in 2021. So overall, this is kind of a win-win situation that we've been talking about really all video. The best kind of deals are the ones that really help both teams. And I think that's the case in this scenario.
And that helps. People underestimate how much that helps your ability to trade in the future too. Because if you make a trade like this, like I did with Jared, and I benefit his team in the future, and let's say my second round pick that I gave him turns into a cornerstone piece for him, he's going to be more inclined to make deals with me in the future. And the better relationship you have with your fellow league mates on making trades, the easier it is to benefit your own team in the process, right? Because if you're constantly trying to screw people over in trades and trying to win the trade and make sure that their team gets worse while your team gets better, then no one's going to want to trade with you.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. There always has to be purpose with your offers. And if your purpose is just to rip people off, then it's just not the right way to go about it, in my opinion. But anyways, with that being said, we can close it off with the final trade of the video. And guess what? I'm going to be talking myself again because I actually did this in our Scott's Tots League. I traded away Alvin Kamara and Marquise Brown prior to the draft. And in exchange, I ended up receiving prior to the rookie draft the 104, the 109, the 211, and the 401, which ended up turning into Justin Fields, Kyle Pitts, De'Ami Brown, and Hunter Long. So overall, I am a contender, so losing Alvin Kamara hurt. But from my perspective, I ended up losing in the championship last year because I didn't have the requisite depth to be able to deal with injury. Didn't have a third quarterback. Dak went down, kind of got screwed over. So overall, I sold high on Kamara, was able to kind of get more depth pieces to really build my roster and have depth in case anything were to happen. So overall, I'm happy with this move. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you also got extremely lucky that Kyle Pitts was there at the 109 because that should never have happened. And the reason it did happen is because somebody in our league reached for a need. And we talk about it all the time, right? The 108 was Mac Jones. And Mac Jones should not have went at the 108. He's not a better prospect than Kyle Pitts. He's not going to help your team more than Kyle Pitts. And even if you need a quarterback, you should not be doing that in your rookie draft. So if you guys are in a situation like that where you think and we think or whatever your piece of advice that you're going off of, if you see a tier break in talent like Kyle Pitts to Mac Jones, which is a massive tier break, just pick the best player. Don't pick the need. You can always trade for a quarterback. You can even use Kyle Pitts. Once training camp hype starts up and Kyle Pitts is getting all this hype talking about how he's the best tight end that anybody's ever seen, you could potentially flip Kyle Pitts for a much better quarterback option than Mac Jones even is anyway. So I would strongly consider you guys to not do that, because then you turn other teams in your league like Danny, who didn't really have a lot of needs, was in the championship last year, and he was able to get Kyle Pitts at the 109. And to me, that was just absurd.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys haven't seen that team, it's pretty dominant. So anyways, we could wrap up the video. Any closing thoughts you have before we head out of recording?
No, I think that's good. If you guys want to be on the next Dynasty decisions, we haven't decided how long we're going to do these for. It's as long as you guys want to do them, essentially. So next time, if you want to send us your trades, if you want to send us general Dynasty questions, what is the value of next year's first round picks or whatever, like you can ask us anything basically Dynasty related for the next Dynasty decisions, and we will answer it. We encourage you to ask us legitimate questions, though, not just like rate my teams necessarily, because we want to make sure that these videos are enjoyable for the other people watching it, not only the people that had their questions answered, but the people just, watching us talk about Dynasty in general. So please keep the questions specific if you can. If you enjoyed this, as we mentioned, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We are, we just have gained about 500 subscribers in the last month or so. So you guys are absolutely killing it. Again, if you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button, join the Discord to have any of your questions answered by us and fellow Dynasty players and fantasy players in general.
For sure. And if you've made it this far, comment Dynasty decisions down below. Anyways, with that being said, peace out, y'all.